Now at 5, how Crowder College in Neosho, Missouri plans to use a $1.4 million donation. Plus, a Joplin business owner is on a mission to beautify a historic street. And
President Biden admits there's still work left to be done to tamp down inflation, but he's optimistic about the state of the nation's economy. I'm Skyler Henry at the White House with his latest message.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
the engineering technology program at Neosho's Crowder College gets a boost from a 7-figure gift. This is KOAM News at 5. I'm Dow Quick. In a ceremony this afternoon, the college received a $1.4 million check from the estate of Greta Mitzi Rennick, a retired General Dynamics employee who died in March at age 94. The college president says it's among the largest individual gifts in the college's 60-year history. Among other things, it'll allow Crowder to endow a new faculty position in engineering technology. Earnings from a portion of the money will fund that position perpetually. A portion will also support an annual academy.
We're going to help students through the President's Leadership Academy. We take 20 students a year. It's a 2-year program. We're going to take those students and be able to provide some activities that normally just would not happen otherwise.
Earnings from the fund will also pay for construction of a press box and other improvements at Rough Rider softball field. You might notice a bit more color on a historic Joplin street these days. Inspired by a St. Louis suburb initiative, a Joplin greenhouse started a project to beautify the city by adding flowers to West 7th Street. Albert's greenhouse partnered with local businesses and with the city of Joplin to put 7 planters on the historic Route 66. The goal is to make the area look more like a neighborhood. The nursery sells a pot to the businesses and offers them the soil and the flowers free of charge.
It's always important to uplift people's spirits, and a few little flowers can just do it. It's never going to put a frown on your face.
As a local business, whenever you get the opportunity to beautify your area that you're working in, it's a great opportunity to do so.
The project started in April, and Albert hopes the Supertinias will still be blooming on Thanksgiving. Next year it continues. Flowers are going to be planted and replanted at no charge to businesses in the area. 3 local veterans got a chance to take to the skies once again in a World War II era biplane. The nonprofit Dream Flights hosted the trip for 3 veterans living at medical lodges in Columbus, Kansas. 98-year-old Louis Saketa, 74-year-old Ivan Queen, and 75-year-old Morgan Davidson. Flights took off from Pittsburgh's Atkinson Municipal Airport and lasted 20 minutes.
Give them life back. Most of them are in assisted living facilities, and they're bound within the walls of that facility for many years. And so being able to thank them for their service and give back in any way that we can.
Dream Flights was hosted in 2011 and has had nearly 6,000 flights since its creation, those flights for veterans. Chloe Arroyo joins us now with a first look at the weather.
Well, thankfully, we've seen a little bit of relief in the way of rainfall, some scattered showers and storms. But unfortunately, we're still seeing the effects of this drought. Taking a really closer look, Nevada, Fort Scott, even Stockton, you guys are seeing those drier effects in that extreme range and exceptional areas of drought for Howard, Otter, Sedan, even around the Bloomington and Wichita area. That's where we're going to see the driest conditions. We'll see a little bit of relief heading into this weekend, not by much, but just a little bit. And we'll take what we can get. Temperatures right now hanging around in the lower 80s, which is a whole lot cooler than what we have seen last week. So thankfully we're out of the triple-digit zone. Coming up in a bit, we're going to be talking about the temperatures and when they'll warm up, a little further details on the drought monitor, and when we'll see our next chance for rain heading into this weekend. That's all coming up in a bit. See you soon. The White House is taking its economic message on the road today, with President Biden touting his administration's achievements in South Carolina. The Palmetto State hasn't supported a Democrat for president since Jimmy Carter back in 1976. The trip comes as the Treasury Secretary takes a U.S. message overseas to China. Reporter Skyler Henry has more now from the White House.
Hello, South Carolina.
President Biden greeted workers at the Flex manufacturing facility in South Carolina. A new partnership with Enphase Energy is projected to create 600 jobs there and twice that many throughout the country.
Our plan is working. And one of the things I'm proudest of is working everywhere, not just in the coast and big cities.
The White House is pushing its economic policies as resilient in the face of both inflation and congressional Republican opposition. GOP South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, who's campaigning to take President Biden's job, slammed his economic plan.
Every single month since he's been in office, except for one, inflation outpacing increases in wages. We've done better, we can do better.
The president also touted his administration's work to get both the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act turned into law, plus creating and returning more jobs to the U.S. That includes investing more than $52 billion in semiconductor research and development and guardrails to stop companies from building related facilities in China. This comes as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is on a sensitive trip to Beijing. She hopes to ease the current tense relationship and spur healthy economic competition between the two superpowers. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
There are new allegations involving the January 6th defendant arrested near former President Barack Obama's D.C. home last week. Prosecutors say Taylor Taranto threatened to blow up his van outside a government facility the day before his arrest. Prosecutors also say Taranto targeted Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, who led Donald Trump's second impeachment. Following his arrest, federal agents say they found 2 guns, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and a machete inside his van. 2 firefighters were killed in a cargo ship fire in Newark, New Jersey. The fire broke out last night on a 12-story ship docked in Port Newark that was loaded with about 5,000 cars. Officials say the fire started in 6 or 7 cars and then spread to other floors of the ship where the firefighters became trapped. Firefighters were also injured. 5 of them were. Still ahead, why a new report showing a rise in debt delinquencies could make it harder for you to borrow money. And next in Health Watch, the FDA decides whether to approve a landmark drug to treat Alzheimer's disease. Topping today's Health Watch, today the FDA gave its full approval on a landmark drug to treat Alzheimer's disease. Patients and their families have been pushing for approval of the medication, which has shown some promise in delaying the disease. Reporter Bradley Blackburn has more on what today's decision means.
79-year-old Susie Mitchell is living with the early symptoms of Alzheimer's disease with help from a drug called Leqembi.
I can stay active and healthy and with it.
A few months ago, with the diagnosis of mild cognitive decline, she started receiving infusions. Her husband, Tom, says her symptoms have stayed the same, which to them is a real victory.
I don't think there's been any change between even the first of the year and now.
In January, the FDA fast-tracked the approval of Leqembi, which targets plaques in the brain associated with Alzheimer's. A clinical trial with 1,800 participants tested the drug against a placebo and found it can slow cognitive decline by 27%, effectively delaying the disease by about 5 months. But more than 1 in 10 users had brain swelling or bleeding, and 3 patients died.
Without insurance, Leqembi costs more than $26,000 a year, but full FDA approval could expand coverage, including for up to 1 million Medicare patients with early cases of Alzheimer's.
We do know that there are a lot of third-party payers who are now having to strongly consider how they're going to pay and provide access to this particular drug.
Mitchell hopes more patients like her can receive the medication.
I feel like I can keep up and live my life the way I want to live my life.
Grateful for a treatment that gives her time and hope. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Taking care of your teeth might be good for your gray matter. A study published in Neurology indicates that patients with gum disease and tooth loss were more likely to have brain shrinkage, which can play a role in memory problems and Alzheimer's disease. Researchers found that for people with even mild gum disease, for every 1 tooth lost, The increase in the rate of brain shrinkage equals nearly 1 year of brain aging. In addition to being good for your heart, regular exercise might also be good for your brain. But not getting enough sleep can negate that second benefit. A study by University College London found people who were physically active but slept less than 6 hours were just as likely to experience cognitive decline as people who didn't exercise at all. Doctors say sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night is ideal. That is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, how federal regulators are cracking down on companies selling THC products that look like popular snacks.
We've got storm chances in the forecast. I'll give you all the details coming up next. Well, thankfully, we've seen a bit of relief in the way of temperatures. Last week, we saw those triple digits, and now we're hanging around in the 80s for our high. Here's a look at our Indigo Sky Casino and Resort just west of Seneca, Missouri. Not much in the way of sunshine right now. Those clouds are from a result of the slight showers that we saw earlier, but even though we saw that precipitation, we're still seeing these drought conditions across the board. You can see it's pretty extreme around the Stockton and Nevada and Fort Scott area, but very exceptional as you head further south and east into Kansas. This is where those extreme conditions are in the most dry areas around Howard, Sedan, Otter, Winfield, and even around the Wichita area are the driest places as of right now. Thankfully, we'll see a little bit of rain in the forecast this weekend. But as of right now, we're pretty dry, but we're pretty toasty in terms of temperatures, hanging around in the lower 80s. Once again, a lot better than what we saw last week in the triple digits. So we'll take what we can get at this point. Feels pretty cool, especially for the month of July. Our average is a little higher than the 80s, so thankfully we'll take what we can get. Dew point's a little on the higher side though, so still feeling a little muggier, especially for our folks a little further down south. Anderson and Bentonville at 70 degrees for Grove and Jay. So once you get above 70, that's when we typically start to see those dew points warm us up quite a bit and warm up the heat index as well. Here's a look at the comparison between the two. The yellow line is the actual temperature, and then the orange line is that heat index. So you can see it kind of matches around tonight, around 11 o'clock, but as we head into tomorrow and even Friday evening, that dew point will rise once again, making our feel like temperatures a little warmer. Temperatures tonight heading down into the 60s, mid 60s across the board for our low, but we'll see some more rainfall heading into this weekend. Friday morning, we'll see some more widespread showers and storms, a couple of strong ones at the leading edge of this. This will push through Friday morning into the afternoon hours. It'll be most prominent for northeastern Oklahoma and for southwestern Missouri and Arkansas as well around the Bentonville area. We'll see that chance for precipitation. We'll see some remnants afterwards into Friday evening. That's going to turn into more scattered storms. Some could be strong with this as well. The severe risk is pretty low, but we couldn't rule out a couple of warnings here and there with this as well. So some could bring some gusty winds and some heavy rainfall associated with those storms. Temperatures into the upper 70s heading into Saturday evening. So we'll see those temperatures cool off quite a bit into that, and even Sunday morning we'll see a chance for some storms. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. We've got chances for precipitation the next 3 days up until Sunday, 50% chance, but we'll even see a little bit of a warm up on Wednesday and Thursday. I have 96 right now for Thursday, but I wouldn't be surprised if that gets elevated pretty soon here based on the model trend. So we're really keeping an eye on that for right now, but warmer temperatures heading into next week.
Yeah, and in the meantime, the possibility of some rain is very appealing to a lot of people.
Yes, so all good news right there.
I guess so. Thanks, Chloe. Tens of millions of Americans are facing sweltering temperatures in what's being called the hottest week for the planet. Climate scientists say July 4th was the Earth's warmest day on record. Even with half the planet experiencing winter right now, the average temperature climbed to nearly 63 degrees, and it's not falling. Experts say the climate crisis, combined with an El Nino weather pattern, warming temperatures in the Pacific, is pushing new world records. Coming up, what a new report on consumer debt could mean for your ability to borrow money. Topping today's Consumer Watch, a federal regulator is calling for cannabis companies to stop selling products that packaging closely resembles popular snacks. Look at these. The Federal Trade Commission says 6 companies are using packaging which could trick children into accidentally ingesting Delta-8 THC. It's a psychoactive substance found in hemp. The companies have 15 days to respond with their planned actions. A new report finds consumer debt delinquencies are on the rise, raising questions about whether we're heading for a credit crunch. That would mean banks are set to tighten their lending standards, making it harder to borrow cash. Reporter Shelley Malashi has a closer look at that troubling trend.
Missed credit payments on the rise and raising concerns about a potential credit crunch. Delinquencies rose across all days past due categories year on year, including credit cards, loans, and mortgages, jumping from 0.16% of loans in May 2022 to 0.25% in May of 2023. That's according to the latest monthly credit gauge analysis from Vantage Score.
Now, as we move forward, I think it's highly likely that down market consumers will continue to face elevated rates of credit on their revolving debt and credit cards.
Higher interest rates have made borrowing more expensive, and as interest rates rise, the cost of servicing debt increases, economists say, making it more challenging for people to keep up with payments. And all that is putting additional strain on households already struggling to make ends meet, forcing some families to cut back on discretionary spending and making sacrifices in daily essentials in order to prioritize payments. Experts say if this trend of delinquencies continues, it could lead to a credit crunch. Lenders may become more cautious in extending credit, making it harder for you to access new loans or credit cards. And while the Federal Reserve paused interest rate hikes last month, economists say there doesn't appear to be any relief on the horizon, with the Fed expected to raise rates again this year.
It's going to be difficult for the Fed to sort of just stop and say, hey, we're done.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Shelley Malashi.
Mortgage rates went up again last week to the highest so far this year, an average of 6.81% for a 30-year fixed-rate loan. The rate is 0.1% higher than the week before and 1.5% higher than this time last year. That's according to data from Freddie Mac. Mixed news for people looking for jobs. The U.S. private sector saw a massive spike in hiring activity in June. That's according to payroll processor ADP. 497,000 jobs were added last month. That's more than double what economists predicted. But according to the Department of Labor, the number of job openings dipped to under 10 million for May. A final check of the forecast next. Up next on the CBS Evening News, how a new innovation could save America's tap water from so-called forever chemicals. Then on KOAM News at 6, how some recent rain is giving some Kansas farmers hope for their fall crop. Plus, we're going to have more on a Joplin business's mission to beautify a historic street. And a Parsons, Kansas teen is making a name for herself as a power lifter. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Tiny Canadian town rewrote the history books by attempting to break a dinosaur dance party world record. Yeah, there is such a thing. The town of Dundurn, Saskatoon has only about 700 people in the population, so organizers used social media to spread the word. And as you can see, it worked. Folks came from far and wide, and the community was transformed into a massive party with a reported head count of more than 1,100 dinos. That's well above the current Guinness World Record for dressed as dino gatherings, which sits at 253 people. I'm not surprised they could get that many people. I am constantly surprised by the things that Guinness World Record takes track of.
You can't make this stuff up.
You can't make it up.
You truly can't.
The weather, real quickly.
Yes. Well, we've got a chance for some storms the next 3 days. Get a little bit of a break on Monday, but those temperatures are going to slowly but surely creep up by Wednesday and Thursday.
See you at 6. Let's make it a great evening.